really tries but misunderstands.
This song was so powerful it was banned by radio stations, but that only made it more legendary. And when you hear why, you'll never listen to it the same way again. 30. Incense and Peppermints, Strawberry Alarm Clock, 1967.
To divide the cockeyed world in two, throw your pride to one side.
The band that created this psychedelic classic didn't even let their lead singer sing it. And the guy who did, he wasn't even in the band. That's right, one of the biggest psychedelic anthems of the 60s was sung by a random teenager. Strawberry Alarm Clock stumbled into success when their trippy, organ-heavy track Incense and Peppermints hit #1. The hypnotic melody and kaleidoscope lyrics made it an instant favorite, but the band had an odd rule. Only members could sing lead vocals, so they let their 16-year-old friend Greg Munford step in for the recording. The result? A song that became a symbol of the psychedelic movement. But despite its massive success, Munford never officially joined the band. Imagine scoring a #1 hit before even graduating high school. Did you know the song's lyrics were written to be completely meaningless, just random phrases strung together to sound trippy? And yet, it became a counterculture anthem. 29. I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night, The Electric Prunes, 1966.
You were so real that I could feel your eagerness.
At first listen, this song sounds like a lost love ballad, but in reality, it was about something way stranger, an actual hallucinatory dream. And once you hear the opening guitar effect, you'll feel like you're waking up from one. The Electric Prunes were one of the most experimental bands of the 60s, and this song proved it. They wanted an opening that sounded like drifting in and out of consciousness, so they recorded a reverse guitar chord that fades in, making you feel like you're slipping between reality and illusion. The song became a cult classic, influencing bands like the Flaming Lips and MGMT. But here's the craziest part. Most of the band didn't even play on the final version. Their producer used session musicians instead, a common trick in the industry at the time. Strange but true, the term too much to dream was actually a joke, mocking the idea that dreaming could be something overwhelming or excessive. 28. Psychotic Reaction, Count 5, 1966. A bunch of high school kids with zero professional experience accidentally created one of the most iconic psychedelic rock songs ever. They weren't even trying to start a band. They were just messing around in a garage. One day, their guitarist started playing a wild, fuzzed-out riff that sounded insane. Their teacher overheard them and told them, "That sounds like a psychotic reaction." And just like that, the song was born. This track took garage rock and melted it into something new. The abrupt tempo changes, screeching harmonica, and wild solos made it feel like a musical acid trip. Even legends like Pete Townshend of The Who said it was a direct influence on their sound. Wild fact, the band lied about being British to sound more authentic. They were actually from California, but wore British-style clothes to trick fans. 27. In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, Iron Butterfly, 1968.
Don't you know that I'll always be true?
The most legendary mistake in rock history. This song wasn't supposed to be called In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, it was supposed to be In the Garden of Eden. But during a drunken recording session, the lead singer slurred the words so badly that the band kept it as it was. At 17 minutes long, this track is one of the longest psychedelic rock songs ever recorded. It wasn't just a song, it was a full-on experience. The hypnotic drum solo, eerie organ, and otherworldly guitar riffs made it feel like an acid trip in real time. The song became so big that Iron Butterfly's record label wanted a shorter version for radio play, but fans demanded the full-length version. And today, It's recognized as one of the most defining psychedelic tracks ever. Crazy fact, the song was played non-stop at the legendary Woodstock Festival, but not by the band. A DJ used it as background music because of its trippy effect on the crowd. 26. Green Tambourine, The Lemon Pipers, 1967.
Walk away. Any song you want, I'll gladly play.
A psychedelic hit that was never supposed to be psychedelic at all. The Lemon Pipers were a struggling band who hated their own song, but when it became a massive hit, they had no choice but to embrace it. The song features one of the first ever uses of the electric sitar in rock music, a move that made it sound eerily futuristic. And while the lyrics seem playful, they were actually inspired by street musicians begging for money. "Drop a dime before I walk away" wasn't just a cute line, it was real life. But here's the twist. The Lemon Pipers wanted to be a hard rock band, not a psychedelic pop act. They were forced to record this song by their label, and despite its success, they eventually broke up from frustration. Industry secret. The band members despised the song so much that they refused to perform it live after their success faded. 25. Time Has Come Today, The Chambers Brothers, 1967. This wasn't just a song, it was a revolution. The Chambers Brothers were one of the first black rock bands to break into psychedelic rock, and they did it with a song that defied all expectations. With a hypnotic ticking clock, echoing shouts, and a mind-warping 11-minute version, this song broke every rule of rock music. At a time when radio stations refused to play songs over 3 minutes, the Chambers Brothers made one of the longest and most unforgettable psychedelic anthems ever. But the craziest part? The original version was recorded years earlier, but record labels rejected it for being too experimental. It wasn't until 1967 that it finally saw the light of day and became a counterculture anthem. Insane fact. Some stations straight up refused to play the song, saying its rebellious sound could incite riots during protests.
Tired of expensive, low-effort script writers for your YouTube channel? Autoscripter.ai is the ultimate solution. Say goodbye to low-quality, poorly retention amateur scripts that fail to generate thousands of views for your channel. At a fraction of the cost, Autoscripter.ai helps your videos go viral. In just 3 steps, Autoscripter.ai creates a polished script tailored to your needs. Just input your title concept, select your tone and style. The intuitive interface makes editing and refining effortless, fast, smart, and trusted by hundreds of satisfied users who have already discovered the amazing tool. Start your free trial today and watch Autoscripter.ai transform your YouTube channel. Just click the link in the video description below now.
24. Pictures of Matchstick Men, Status Quo, 1968. The opening guitar riff of this song feels like a never-ending spiral pulling you into a hypnotic trance. But here's the weirdest part. This psychedelic classic was written in a toilet. Francis Rossi, the band's frontman, was sitting in the bathroom when he came up with the iconic melody. He later admitted that the song's swirling, phased-out guitar effect wasn't just for style. It was his attempt to mimic the sounds he heard while high. Despite the song's massive success, Status Quo quickly abandoned psychedelia and switched to a more blues-driven rock sound. But this track remains their only psychedelic hit and one of the most recognizable songs of the era. Hidden Detail. The song's lyrics describe a man losing his grip on reality, watching his world dissolve into distorted, swirling visions, just like the music itself. 23. Hurdy Gurdy Man, Donovan, 1968.
Then when the Hurdy Gurdy Man came singing songs.
This song sounds like it came straight from a mystical dream. But did you know it was supposed to be performed by Jimi Hendrix? That's right, Donovan originally wrote it for him, but ended up keeping it for himself. With droning guitars, cryptic lyrics, and a haunting vocal performance, Hurdy Gurdy Man feels like a medieval chant infused with acid rock. And here's where things get even stranger. Donovan claimed he wrote it after an actual vision of an enlightened being. Another mystery? The lead guitar solo. Many believe it was played by Jimmy Page, but to this day, no one really knows. Even the musicians involved have conflicting memories. Strange but true. Some fans believe this song contains hidden messages about past lives, reincarnation, and cosmic awakenings because Donovan himself claimed to have channeled it from another dimension. 22. Fresh Garbage. Spirit. 1968. A psychedelic rock song about actual trash? At first glance, the lyrics sound like a poetic metaphor, but Spirit's lead singer, Jay Ferguson, was literally inspired by the garbage piling up in 1960s Los Angeles. Spirit was one of the most innovative yet underrated psychedelic bands of the decade. Unlike other groups, they fused jazz, blues, and experimental rock, making their sound way ahead of its time. This track opens with a funky, hypnotic groove that instantly feels different from anything else on this list. The lyrics warn about consumerism and waste, something that makes it shockingly relevant today. Music industry secret. Spirit later sued Led Zeppelin for allegedly stealing parts of their song Taurus, a track that sounds eerily similar to the opening of Stairway to Heaven. 21. Paper Sun. Traffic. 1967. This song may sound bright and colorful, but its meaning is far darker. The paper sun isn't just poetic imagery, it's a hidden reference to LSD blotter paper, one of the most common ways people took acid in the 60s. Steve Winwood and his band Traffic were pioneers of British psychedelia, and Paper Sun was their debut single. With a swirling sitar, hypnotic drumming, and trippy vocals, it was an instant hit. But unlike other feel-good psychedelic songs, this one tells the story of a bad trip, a fake artificial happiness that quickly fades away. The band recorded this track in a single 8-hour session, proving that sometimes the most legendary songs come from pure creative energy. And once you realize the true meaning behind the lyrics, it's impossible to hear it the same way again. Hidden detail. Traffic's guitarist Dave Mason was one of the first British rock musicians to incorporate Indian classical instruments into psychedelic rock, a trend later popularized by the Beatles. 20. See Emily Play. Pink Floyd. 1967.
Emily tries but misunderstands.
A song so eerie it feels like it belongs in a dream. But here's the strange part. Syd Barrett, the band's founder, claimed it actually was about a girl he saw in a vision while high. Pink Floyd wasn't always the progressive rock giant we know today. Back in 1967, they were one of the wildest experimental psychedelic bands in London. See Emily Play captures that era perfectly with its ghostly piano, wobbly sound effects, and distorted laughter buried in the mix. The song became a hit, but it came at a price. Syd Barrett's mental health started to deteriorate, and his increasing use of LSD only worsened it. Soon after this song's release, he left the band entirely. Unsettling fact. Pink Floyd later dedicated their classic song Shine On You Crazy Diamond to Barrett, who vanished from the music scene, forever lost in his own psychedelic world. 19. Strawberry Fields Forever. The Beatles. 1967.
Down, 'cause I'm going to Strawberry Fields.
A song that doesn't just sound like a dream, it feels like one. But here's what most people don't know. It was inspired by an actual place from John Lennon's childhood. Lennon used to play in the garden of a Salvation Army children's home called Strawberry Field. The memories of those days, combined with the effects of LSD, created one of the most famous psychedelic tracks of all time. The song's haunting orchestration, reversed instruments, and bizarre time signatures made it unlike anything the Beatles had done before. And the famous fade out and fade in at the end? That wasn't a mistake. It was done on purpose to make listeners feel like they were falling into another reality. Mind-bending secret. If you play the ending backwards, some people claim you can hear Lennon saying, "I buried Paul." This fueled one of the biggest conspiracy theories in music, the infamous Paul is dead rumor. 18. Shapes of Things. The Yardbirds, 1966.
Just teach me to despise.
At first listen, this track sounds like just another 60s rock song. But listen closer and you'll hear something groundbreaking. The first ever psychedelic rock guitar solo. Before Hendrix, before Cream, before anyone else, Jeff Beck played a mind-bending, distorted, feedback-heavy solo that changed music forever. The song itself is a warning about the dangers of war and environmental destruction, making it one of the first psychedelic protest anthems. Its lyrics, "Please don't destroy these lands, don't make them desert sands," were shockingly prophetic for the time. But here's what makes it even crazier. This song was recorded in a single take. No fancy production tricks, no overdubs, just pure raw energy. It inspired later psychedelic and hard rock legends like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and even Metallica. Game-changing fact. This was one of the first rock songs to use a distorted, sustained guitar sound, a technique that would later define heavy metal. 17. Light My Fire, The Doors, 1967.
Shiner, we can only lose, and our life become a funeral pie.
The song that introduced the world to Jim Morrison's deep, hypnotic voice. But here's the crazy part. He didn't write it. It was actually Robbie Krieger, the band's guitarist, who came up with the song's core idea. At over 7 minutes long, Light My Fire shattered all the rules of radio-friendly music. The swirling organ solo by Ray Manzarek wasn't just long, it was mesmerizing. A jazz-infused, out-of-body experience that took listeners on a ride they'd never forget. But here's what truly made it legendary. When the Doors were asked to shorten the song for a TV performance, Morrison refused. When they tried to censor the lyric, "Girl, we couldn't get much higher," he intentionally sang it louder on live television, sparking outrage. Banned but bigger. Because of that performance, the Doors were banned from the Ed Sullivan Show for life. The result? The controversy only made them more popular. 16. Are You Experienced? The Jimi Hendrix Experience, 1967.
If you can just get your mind together.
This song doesn't just ask a question, it takes you on a journey through another dimension. The backward guitar track, eerie spoken vocals, and trippy drumming make it feel like your mind is being rewired in real time. Hendrix was famous for using the studio as an instrument, and Are You Experienced was one of his greatest sonic experiments. He recorded entire sections backward, creating an otherworldly sound that had never been heard before. Some listeners even claim that playing it on repeat gave them hallucinations. But what makes it even wilder is the hidden message behind the song. Many fans believe it's about LSD and self-discovery, but Hendrix himself once hinted that it was about something even deeper, spiritual awakening. Unbelievable fact. This song was recorded in just one session, with Hendrix directing the entire band like a scientist creating an experiment. 15. White Room, Cream, 1968. The song's title may seem simple, but its meaning is far from it. White Room was inspired by a lonely, drug-fueled trip in an empty apartment where the world felt both overwhelming and hollow at the same time. Eric Clapton's legendary wah-wah guitar solo was one of the most influential moments in psychedelic rock. But here's the twist. The song's real magic lies in its haunting lyrics. They describe a man waiting in a white room, lost in time, unable to escape his own mind. When the band first played it for the producer, he hated it. He thought it was too weird and too long. But when it hit the airwaves, it became one of Cream's biggest hits, forever defining their psychedelic blues sound. Unexpected fact: the song's cryptic imagery, black curtains, golden tigers, was written entirely in a stream of consciousness state influenced by the band's heavy LSD use. 14. Magic Carpet Ride, Steppenwolf, 1968. Few songs capture the feeling of flying through space better than this one. But here's what most people don't know. The song wasn't actually about drugs. It was about the freedom of imagination and how music itself could transport you to other worlds. The opening fuzzed out guitar riff is one of the dirtiest, heaviest sounds of the psychedelic era. When the producer first heard it, he thought the band had broken their amps, but that distorted, gritty tone became the song's defining feature. Steppenwolf recorded this track in a marathon 24-hour studio session, pushing themselves to their creative limits. The result? A song that feels like pure adrenaline and escape. Mind-blowing detail. NASA actually played this song in space. It was chosen as part of a playlist for astronauts to listen to while orbiting Earth. 13. Somebody to Love, Jefferson Airplane, 1967.
Now the truth is found, when it's all
This song became the soundtrack to The Summer of Love, but its backstory is way darker than you'd expect. Before Grace Slick sang it with Jefferson Airplane, the song was originally recorded by her first band, The Great Society. When she joined Jefferson Airplane, she brought the song with her, and it changed everything. Her commanding, almost hypnotic voice transformed it into a powerful anthem about love, loss, and human connection. But here's where things get weird. Despite its feel-good reputation, the song's lyrics aren't about romance. They're about paranoia and betrayal. It's a warning that if you don't have real love in your life, you'll be left empty and broken. Wild fact: Jimi Hendrix loved this song so much that he once told Grace Slick she had the voice of an acid goddess. 12. Good Vibrations, The Beach Boys, 1966.
Give me the excitations. I'm picking up good vibrations.
This song wasn't just a hit, it was a scientific experiment in sound. Brian Wilson spent 8 months and $50,000 recording it, making it the most expensive single ever produced at the time. Wilson called Good Vibrations a pocket symphony, layering different musical sections like pieces of a puzzle. The result? A song that feels like it's shifting dimensions in real time, bouncing between dreamy harmonies, eerie theremin sounds, and explosive choruses. But what does good vibrations actually mean? Wilson believed that people give off vibrations, both good and bad, and this song was his attempt to capture the feeling of pure euphoria. Unreal detail. The Beach Boys recorded over 90 hours of music for this song before choosing the final pieces. If they had used all the takes, it could have been an entire album. 11. Sunshine of Your Love, Cream, 1967. One of the heaviest, dirtiest, most hypnotic riffs in rock history, and it was inspired by a Jimi Hendrix concert. Cream's bassist Jack Bruce went home after seeing Hendrix play live and started writing the most iconic bass line of his career. The song's slow-burning groove and smoky, late-night atmosphere made it an instant classic. But here's the kicker. Radio stations were afraid to play it at first because it was too sensual. The way Clapton's guitar weaves through the vocals created a sound unlike anything before it. The song helped shape hard rock, heavy metal, and blues rock. Decades later, it still feels dangerous, as if it's calling you into the unknown. Rock history moment. When Jimi Hendrix first heard Sunshine of Your Love, he immediately played it live in his next concert as a tribute to Cream. 10. Painted Black, The Rolling Stones, 1966.
I see a red door and I want to paint it black.
The opening notes of this song feel like stepping into a shadowy, twisted nightmare. But what makes it even darker? It was written as a funeral song, a reflection of grief and depression. The song's signature sitar riff wasn't a random experiment. Brian Jones, one of the Stones' founding members, had become obsessed with Indian music and wanted to push the band's sound into new psychedelic territory. The result? One of the first and most powerful blends of rock and Eastern music. Painted Black wasn't just a hit, it became a generational anthem, influencing everyone from punk bands to metal legends. Its lyrics about losing all joy and wanting to paint everything black were shockingly dark for the time, but that only made people love it more. Chilling fact: this song became a battlefield anthem for soldiers during the Vietnam War, capturing the feeling of loss and hopelessness in a way no other song could. 9. 8 Miles High, The Byrds, 1966. This song got banned from the radio, but not for the reason you might think. People assumed it was about an LSD trip, but the Byrds always claimed it was actually inspired by their first trip to London. Musically, it was way ahead of its time. The guitar solo was directly inspired by John Coltrane's jazz saxophone style, creating a chaotic, swirling effect that made listeners feel like they were floating. It was one of the first psychedelic rock songs ever, paving the way for everyone from Pink Floyd to The Doors. But here's the kicker. Before the song could fully take off, it was blacklisted from major radio stations. The Byrds denied it was about drugs, but the damage was done. The controversy only made it more legendary. Shocking detail: the FBI reportedly investigated this song because of its supposed drug references, showing just how paranoid people were about psychedelia in the 60s. 8. Tomorrow Never Knows, The Beatles, 1966.
Float downstream, it is not dying.
This wasn't just a song, it was a sonic revolution. The Beatles weren't interested in traditional pop anymore, they wanted to bend reality itself. The track was inspired by the Tibetan Book of the Dead and was designed to feel like a full-on psychedelic trip. John Lennon's voice was fed through a spinning speaker to make it sound like it was floating in space. Meanwhile, the drumming? It never changes. Just a hypnotic pounding rhythm that makes you feel like time is standing still. This was also one of the first songs ever to use tape loops, creating those eerie reversed noises in the background. When Paul McCartney brought in the idea, George Martin, the Beatles' producer, thought they had gone insane. But the result? A song so futuristic that it still sounds fresh today. Insane fact: this was the first Beatles song recorded after they took LSD, and it changed their entire approach to music forever. 7. Maggot Brain, Funkadelic, 1971. This song doesn't just sound emotional, it sounds like someone crying through a guitar. And that's because the solo was recorded under extreme conditions. Legend has it that Funkadelic's guitarist Eddie Hazel was told by his band leader George Clinton to play as if your mother just died. The result? A 10-minute long, heart-wrenching guitar solo that feels like pure grief, pain, and transcendence. The first time people heard Maggot Brain, they didn't know what to do. Was it psychedelic rock? Was it funk? Was it something else entirely? It didn't matter. This track became one of the most emotionally powerful instrumentals in rock history. Mind-blowing detail: the original recording had 2 guitars, but Clinton found Hazel's solo so powerful that he muted everything else, leaving just 1 guitar and a whole universe of emotion. 6. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, The Beatles, 1967.
Look for the gas.
Few songs in history have sparked as much controversy as this one. The title alone spells out LSD, leading almost everyone to assume it was about an acid trip. But here's the plot twist. John Lennon always insisted it wasn't. According to Lennon, the inspiration came from a drawing his son Julian made of his classmate Lucy, floating in a dreamlike world. But whether intentional or not, the song became one of the most psychedelic anthems ever recorded. The bizarre shifting time signatures, the surreal lyrics about tangerine trees and marmalade skies, and the hypnotic melody make it feel like a drug trip even if you've never taken one. Despite the band's denial, the BBC banned the song from the airwaves due to its alleged drug references. That only made it more legendary. Trippy detail. Paul McCartney later admitted that the song's imagery was definitely influenced by LSD, even if the title wasn't. 5. White Rabbit. Jefferson Airplane, 1967.
One pill makes you larger, and one pill makes you small.
This song isn't just psychedelic, it's a warning wrapped in a hallucination. Written by Grace Slick, White Rabbit takes Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland and turns it into a metaphor for drug experimentation and expanding consciousness. Everything about it is hypnotic. The slow, steady buildup makes it feel like you're falling deeper into a trip, and by the time the final explosive line hits, "Feed your head," it's impossible not to feel its impact. But what makes this song even crazier? Slick actually wrote it before she ever took drugs. She based the eerie marching rhythm on Bolero, a classical piece by Maurice Ravel. The song became an anthem of rebellion during the late 60s, played at every counterculture gathering. Censorship battle. When Jefferson Airplane performed White Rabbit on television, censors tried to block it, fearing its influence on young listeners. It didn't work. Kids memorized every lyric anyway. 4. Purple Haze. The Jimi Hendrix Experience, 1967. The most electrifying opening riff in psychedelic history, and no one had ever heard anything like it before. Purple Haze wasn't just a song, it was a declaration that rock music had changed forever. People instantly assumed the song was about LSD, and to be fair, the lyrics, "Excuse me while I kiss the sky," definitely sound trippy. But Hendrix claimed it was actually inspired by a dream he had about being lost underwater. Regardless of its meaning, Purple Haze made Hendrix a legend overnight. His innovative use of distortion, feedback, and the Hendrix chord, E7-9, influenced every guitarist that came after him. Even decades later, it's impossible to hear this song and not feel its raw power. Mind-blowing detail. Hendrix originally wanted the song to have a much longer, spacey instrumental section, but the record label forced him to shorten it. Imagine how trippy the full version would have been. 3. Crimson and Clover. Tommy James and the Shondells, 1968.
I think I could love her.
This song wasn't just psychedelic, it was a total accident. Tommy James originally planned for a completely different sound, but while playing around in the studio, they stumbled upon an effect that made his voice sound like it was melting into the music. That dreamy, phased-out vocal effect became one of the first uses of electronic vocal manipulation in rock history. It made the song feel like it was drifting in and out of reality, something no one had ever heard before. But here's the wildest part. Crimson and Clover was never finished. Tommy James rushed to release it early because the demo version got leaked to radio stations. Despite being incomplete, it became a massive psychedelic hit, proving that sometimes mistakes create magic. Studio experiment gone right. The famous echoing vocal effect was discovered by accident when Tommy James started playing with the studio's reverb settings. 2. A Whiter Shade of Pale. Procol Harum, 1967.
But I wandered through my playing cards,
song so hauntingly beautiful that it feels like a memory you forgot you had. The ghostly organ melody was inspired by Bach, giving the song an otherworldly classical feel unlike anything else in rock at the time. But what is this song even about? The lyrics are cryptic, surreal, and full of strange imagery. We skip the light fandango, her face at first just ghostly. Fans have debated for decades whether it's about a lost lover, a spiritual awakening, or even death itself. Here's the real shocker. When this song was released, Procol Harum had never even performed live before. They went from being an unknown band to having one of the biggest hits in psychedelic history overnight. Unreal fact. This song was played at more funerals than any other song in rock, proving how deeply it connects with people's emotions. 1. All Along the Watchtower, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, 1968. No song redefines psychedelic rock more than this one. Bob Dylan originally wrote it as a simple folk tune, but Hendrix transformed it into a cosmic explosion of sound. Even Dylan himself admitted that Hendrix's version was superior. The guitar work here is legendary. Each solo sounds like it's breaking through reality itself. Hendrix recorded dozens of different takes, layering them over each other to create a swirling, apocalyptic atmosphere. The song's lyrics feel like a prophecy, describing a strange, chaotic world where nothing is as it seems. And with the way Hendrix played it, it feels like the soundtrack to the end of time. Mind-blowing detail. Hendrix was so obsessed with getting this song perfect, he made the band record over 27 different takes before he was satisfied. The version we hear today, a masterpiece built from musical obsession. If you love this, you need to check out our next video. It's even wilder. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out. The next story? It's insane. Watch it now.